So I originally recorded this workshop a few years ago when the market was going crazy. There was a lot of misinformation out there, and so I like to keep this workshop updated to make sure that we're delivering the most accurate, up-to-date information possible. As a real estate consultant, I am passionate about helping people build wealth through real estate. It's a true joy to help my clients negotiate their dream home, and I like to keep in touch with my clients after we close. And just in case you are wondering, this is my avatar. She assists me making videos. So the objective for today is to make sure that you are able to confidently navigate a home buying process and do it in a way that helps you build your wealth as you go through it. All the while, making sure that you're getting the best deal that the market will allow. Our clients find a ton of value in the Buyer Success Workshop. So let's dive in. So first of all, let's talk about some of the misconceptions of negotiating a purchase. The first one is that you don't want to show your emotions when you're negotiating. The truth is, buying a home is an emotional experience, and honestly, it's just as emotional for the seller as it is for you. Sellers often want a buyer who will love their property just as much as they have. So we find it works to your advantage to let the seller know how much you love their property. Talk about your dreams for the home and how it will affect your kids. Sellers love that. The next misconception is that your friends and family are sufficient to give you real estate advice. I'm not saying anything negative about family or friends, but keep in mind that real estate is highly localized and the market constantly changes. Your family or friends' past experiences may not reflect the current market conditions. If it's been a while since they bought property, especially locally, their knowledge might be outdated. Negotiation practices and contracts vary by state and region, so it's crucial to take advice from a professional you trust. Choosing an agent you genuinely trust, not just a friend, is essential. Home buying can seem scary, but once you understand the process, it's not that difficult. My first job is to protect your equity. The second part is to help you manage your emotions during this stressful transaction. By educating you on what to expect at each step, we can eliminate much of the uncertainty and frustration that typically comes with this process. Another concern is the fear of getting taken advantage of. The good news is the contract is written in the buyer's favor. Over time, real estate contracts have expanded from just a few pages to around 12 or 13 pages. About 95% of the content is designed to protect the buyer. Sellers already know their home and don't need as much protection. The contract includes various checkpoints and contingencies to protect you and allow you to exit the contract if something isn't right or not in your favor. Let's talk about the ever-changing housing market. The market is shifting with changes in interest rates and the cost of materials. These topics come up in nearly every real estate conversation I have. My goal is to guide you through where the market has been the last few years and where it's headed. It's important to point out that a recession doesn't necessarily mean a housing crash. There's a misconception that a market correction always indicates a major housing crisis. Most corrections are not a full-blown crisis like we had in 2008. In 3 of the last 5 recessions, housing prices actually increased rather than decreased. As you can see, 2008 was an anomaly, which is why it's called the Great Recession. Just like the Great Depression in 1929, the 2008 housing crisis was a significant exception. Managing fear and emotion is one of the keys to navigating a home purchase. And I'm here to assure you, we aren't in 2008 again. We're not anticipating any drastic changes to the market like we saw in 2008. But let's dive into the factors driving the current demand for housing. First, let's talk about organic demand for housing. One significant factor is the tighter lending practices we've seen recently. These practices have made it more challenging for people to get loans without solid financial standing, leading to more qualified buyers entering the market. This shift ensures that the demand we see today is more stable and sustainable. Another major driver is the millennial generation. As more millennials enter their 30s, many are reaching key life milestones. They're getting married, starting families, and naturally, buying homes. This demographic surge is creating a substantial increase in demand for housing. Recently, there's been a sudden increase in home building to meet this rising demand. However, this boom has caused a surge in the cost of lumber and other building materials, impacting the overall housing market. Builders are facing higher costs, which often translate to higher home prices for buyers. Let's tackle another important question that emerged early in the pandemic: unemployment. You might recall the significant spike in unemployment rates. However, what we witnessed was a quick recovery in the job market. Today, there are more job openings than there are people willing to take those jobs. Unemployment is not a major concern at this time. In fact, we're facing the opposite challenge: how to incentivize more people to return to work. Despite the high unemployment rates recently, housing prices didn't drop. The pandemic revealed a split in unemployment across different industries. Higher-paying jobs in sectors like finance and tech saw stability or growth, while younger demographics faced higher unemployment rates. Yet, the financial resilience of established homeowners helped maintain housing prices. Understanding these trends helps explain why the housing market remained strong despite high unemployment rates. As we continue to navigate these dynamics, it's crucial to recognize the factors that contribute to market stability. Now, let's move into the topic of housing affordability. This is something we're watching very closely, especially as we head into 2025. Interest rates are starting to change, and we're monitoring this situation carefully. Interest rates have been going up, and by the time you're watching this, they may have changed even more. What we're finding is that these rate increases might not impact prices as much as they affect the number of properties sold and buyers' willingness to spend above the appraised value. As affordability shifts, the market dynamics change. During our consultations, we emphasize that while prices may not significantly contract, the volume of transactions and buyer behavior are critical indicators. We focus on what properties are actually selling for, not just their listed prices. Understanding these nuances helps us better navigate the market. By keeping a close eye on affordability and interest rates, we can provide you with the best advice for your real estate journey. Let's dive into the impact of interest rates on mortgage payments and what this means for you as a buyer. It's crucial to understand how these rates can affect your purchasing power. For example, if we want to keep our mortgage payment around $3,000 per month, let's look at a typical scenario. At an interest rate of 6%, which has been an average rate over the years, you could afford to purchase a home worth around $500,000. However, when interest rates increase, your purchasing power decreases. To keep a monthly payment under $2,000, you could purchase a home around $400,000 if rates were 6%. A 1% difference in interest rates can change your purchasing power by tens of thousands of dollars. It's important to remember that the price you're purchasing a home for isn't the only important number. Interest rates significantly affect your monthly payments. You're buying a monthly payment, not just the home itself, unless you are paying cash. So, to recap, let's start with inventory. Inventory is definitely increasing. During our consultation, we'll discuss this in more detail. Next, let's talk about the potential for a shortage of inventory. This isn't likely to happen locally because cost of materials is causing new construction to be behind. Regarding the Great Recession, it's essential to understand that it was a rare event, occurring perhaps once in a century. It doesn't reflect typical market cycles. Prices are still expected to rise. So, it's better to secure a property now rather than waiting for interest rates to change. Many buyers have been waiting and hoping for prices to drop, but we've only seen prices go up. Now that we've covered these misconceptions, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about how to negotiate. It's important to understand our strategy because when we don't go through this with a buyer before they start shopping or before we make an offer, there's often a divide. Buyers often focus on the price of the property rather than the overall terms. My goal is to walk you through this and help you understand that the best offer is the one that gets accepted and also gets you the best deal. Throughout this process, we'll cover 5 different things: timing the market, finding the right property, making an offer, what to do when your offer is accepted, and how to protect yourself from getting taken advantage of during the due diligence period. The first part is the timing of it. During the pandemic, buyers would look at 5 to 7 properties and fall in love with one. What we found was that they were falling in love very quickly. However, it was a lot harder to get your offer accepted. We're now stepping back into a pre-pandemic market, where there may be multiple offers on some properties. Homes are priced well, generally in great condition, but there will be some back and forth negotiation. In most cases, the first or second time you look at a property, you'll find something you love. This doesn't mean you're jumping the gun or moving too quickly. It means we took the time to understand exactly what you wanted. We prioritized your must-haves, your nice-to-haves, and your absolute deal breakers. We showed you properties that were the best fit for what you wanted. It's not uncommon for the first or second property to be the one. This is because we've done our due diligence up front. Even in the worst markets, when a property is priced well, it gets multiple offers. The market is brutal, so everything has a clearance tag feel. When a property is priced well and in a condition that can get financed, it will sell quickly and often receive multiple offers. Sometimes negotiations can be fast, like deciding to make an offer and getting an answer in a couple of hours. In other cases, you may find it takes several days. Sometimes, sellers just want the weekend to decide. This waiting period can be stressful for both the buyer and me. So, to the buyers hanging on the edge of their seats, hoping and praying for an answer, know that sometimes it takes time. Sellers may need a few days, and patience is key. Homeownership offers long-term financial benefits, building equity, potential tax deductions, and the stability of owning your home. If you're renting and looking to buy, you can time your closing so you don't have to pay both a rent payment and a mortgage payment. Unlike rent, which is due at the beginning of the month, mortgage payments are typically due at the end. So let's say you close on September 15th. You would pay interest for 15 days of September, plus your first month's payment for October. That means your first official mortgage payment would be on November 1st. It's especially helpful if you have prepaid your last month of rent. If you've prepaid your last month's rent, you might be able to close sooner, easing the transition from renting to homeownership without any extra financial burden. Now that we've figured out our timing, we need to get you pre-qualified. Now, what you don't want to do is go to a fast lender online where you fill out a short application that gets you, quote-unquote, pre-qualified within a few minutes, only to leave you disappointed at the last second. That is not going to work. There's several reasons for that. Fast lenders have a reputation for giving buyers a rough pre-qualification without doing any underwriting. And then 2 or 3 days before closing, dropping a bomb saying, well, actually, we can't finance your home. And so it ends up being super frustrating for you as the buyer. It also makes it hard to get an offer accepted when you go with these fast online lenders because they have such a bad reputation. And you have to remember that when we're negotiating to get an offer accepted, the seller is going to pick the offer that is most likely to close without any surprises. So in terms of getting pre-qualified, I cannot stress enough how important it is to go with a lender who is a mortgage broker. Another reason I recommend a mortgage broker is they are paid on commission, which means they will work hard for you. They will answer the phone when you call. Compare that to a bank that works banker's hours. For example, if it's Saturday morning and you decide you want to make an offer on a property, but you can't get in touch with your lender. Now we have to wait until Monday to get an updated pre-qualification or get an update on the numbers to see if it's even an option. So I cannot stress enough the importance of going with a mortgage broker and make sure that you provide whatever documents they need so we can get you truly pre-qualified. Then we can eliminate the stress of having to get all these documents after we are under contract. Instead, we can focus on our moving plans rather than going through the chaos of trying to get pre-qualified at the last minute. One other thing to mention is some types of loans and some associations have requirements on the type of financing required. If you're looking at townhouses, homes in an association, or condos, make sure that you get properly pre-qualified. Otherwise, you run the risk of wanting to go look at property and then realizing that the financing doesn't even qualify for that property. And so, now we have to go back to the drawing board, which adds extra frustration for no reason when we could just do that up front. So I hope that's helpful to you. Now it's time to find your dream home. We have developed a buyer's application form to help narrow down the right properties for you. We find this step reduces problems later on in the transaction that can easily be avoided. What you don't want to do is say, I want a 3-bed, 2-bath home in this city for this price point. Because if it were just about the number of beds and baths, you would have bought the first house that you saw. But I'm sure there is more to your wish list than the number of bedrooms and bathrooms. So we want to make sure that the lifestyle is a fit. We want to make sure that you find a home in the right school zone. Or if you don't have kids, you may not want to be near a school zone at all. Or maybe you are looking to live near a specific neighborhood. These are the things that are important for us to know so that we can filter through what's available on the market. So, this is what the buyer's application is for. If you can't find anything on the market that you like, but there is a particular neighborhood that you love and you really want to be there, something we like to do for our clients is take a proactive approach and start mailing postcards to the homeowners to ask if anyone is interested in selling. This is a great way to find off-market homes before they go up for sale. But we can't do that until we get your completed buyer's application and we do our initial consultation so that we can really narrow in on exactly what it is that you're looking for. I promise you that by getting you pre-qualified. Processing your buyer's application form and having our consultation, this is how we are able to give you an extraordinary experience. If we don't do those steps in that order, you will find a lot of things come up later on in the transaction that could have been avoided simply by going through this process. I asked a bunch of agents what it is that makes them choose one offer over another. 9 times out of 10, it came down to the working relationship with the buyer agent. For example, Marissa said an agent called her wanting the deal badly, that she had a family of 6 who loved the home, and she asked what would it take to get an offer accepted. A proactive phone call like that can make all the difference. Carrie said she felt comfortable with the buyer agent as she had worked with her before. Becky said she looks for the quality of buyer agent and the use of a local lender. So, these are the types of things that make a difference when it comes to getting your offer accepted. It's normal to look for homes online. Most people start by searching houses for sale in city name on Google, which leads them to websites like Zillow, Realtor.com, or Redfin. These are known as portal sites. Portal sites are useful for initial searches, but there are challenges. The problem you will run into is when you inquire about a property, you're often contacted by a random agent who knows nothing about the home. This agent is simply the one who paid the most for your contact information. So this can be frustrating for clients. Another issue with portal sites is that they may not have the most up-to-date information. For example, they might show a house as active even if it's under contract to attract more users and generate leads for their agents. A better way to search for homes is through the MLS. The MLS system is where brokers list their homes for sale under a shared marketing agreement. It's the best system for home searches because your information remains private and is only visible to your agent. We can set up listing alert emails for specific properties and receive up-to-the-minute updates, which is crucial in a competitive market. The only downside to the MLS is that sometimes listing agents input data incorrectly. For example, they might select association, but not condo association for a property, making it hard to filter accurately. This issue also applies to features like in-unit washers and dryers in condos. Not every agent fills that out correctly. When setting up your listing alert criteria, we aim to narrow down what you want, but we don't want to exclude listings that may have been set up improperly. Therefore, in some cases, we might leave out certain must-have filters to ensure we capture all potential homes you could be interested in. Here are some places where you might be tempted to look at properties. I'm not saying don't do it, but proceed with caution. First, open houses. Feel free to stop by if you're driving around on a weekend or evening. There's nothing wrong with that. However, I recommend signing in with your agent's name. For example, if we decide to work together, you would write "My name, Realtor." This way, they won't add your information to their marketing lists, avoiding unwanted calls, texts, and emails. Next, properties for sale by owners, FSBOs. FSBOs often overprice their homes because they believe their property is worth more than it is, or they lack knowledge. Many buyers think FSBOs offer the best deals, but these sellers often don't want to pay a commission and are hard to negotiate with due to their lack of guidance. While I've successfully handled FSBO transactions, they can be frustrating and complicated. We can pursue them, but be prepared for extra challenges. Lastly, new construction. When you see a new development, contact your agent before giving any information. You are going to get a better deal with an agent representing you. Builders usually operate on a fixed price. They won't increase or decrease their prices if you have an agent or not, but they might add value in other ways, such as offering a better lot for the same price or covering HOA fees for a year or two. Always have your agent accompany you to new construction sites to ensure the best deal. When you're at the property, consider a few important factors. First, how do you feel about the floor plan? I saw a post on an agent Facebook group where a floor plan required walking through all the bedrooms to get to any of them. Every bedroom was connected without hallways, which made no sense and was very odd. The floor plan's flow is crucial. Next, is there room to grow? This often comes up with my buyers, especially around here where space is limited. Buyers often say they'll buy a property with one bedroom, but later they realize they need more space due to life changes, like having a baby or visitors. So, ensure there's enough space for future needs without stretching your budget. Then, check for sufficient storage space. Many newer properties have large open concepts but lack closet space, meaning you'll need to figure out storage solutions or incorporate storage furniture. There should be enough space for all your belongings. Consider the neighborhood. Do you feel safe and comfortable? Do you like the neighborhood's appearance? These factors are significant for your overall satisfaction. Parking is also crucial. Is there adequate guest parking? And finally, was the home priced right, or can you negotiate a better deal? Focus on the bigger issues rather than cosmetic ones like paint or carpet, which can be easily changed. Look for properties that meet your fundamental needs and have the potential to accommodate future growth. All right, so let's say we're shopping for a property and we find one we love. We decide to jump on it and make an offer, but then we learn that there are multiple offers on the table. There are ways to win without having the highest bid. I recommend you take a screenshot of this. We'll discuss it in detail during your consultation. Remember, not every price point and not every city will always have multiple offers. There are many nuances and tricks you can use to get your offer accepted. You just need to be aggressive and strategic about them. After we close on the property, working with our recommended inspectors will give you the benefit of built-in warranties. You are free to choose any inspector, but I strongly suggest selecting one who offers warranties. This ensures that if anything breaks or is missed, it won't become an issue later on. Now, regarding the common questions you might have for agents, here are some insights. Different agents have various opinions, but when I asked them about factors that help sellers pick an offer to accept, they emphasized a short due diligence period. This means limiting the amount we'll request for repairs and focusing on significant items rather than nitpicking every detail. This approach helps in making your offer more attractive to sellers. The next piece is the appraisal. The objective of appraisals is to help the bank determine the unbiased value of the property. As the buyer, neither you, me as your agent, the seller, nor the listing agent have any say in who the appraiser is or the number they come back with. The bank hires the appraiser and the appraiser answers to them. If you're purchasing with cash, you would hire the appraiser if you choose to do so. Let's say, for example, we're under contract, meaning the buyer and the seller have agreed and signed a contract for $350,000. When the appraisal happens, three things can occur. First, if the property appraises higher, for instance, if the appraisal comes back at $800,000, the bank will acknowledge that based on comparable properties in the neighborhood, which are similar and worth $450,000, you gain $50,000 of instant equity. The seller never sees the appraisal. In this scenario, we're all good to go. If the property appraises at $350,000, nothing changes. On the other hand, if the property appraises below $350,000, say it appraises at $300,000, some negotiation is required. This is where things get tricky. During the pandemic, we saw people paying more than the appraised value. Ideally, we don't waive the appraisal completely. As more properties come on the market, we're seeing more negotiation. Sellers will often meet in the middle or come down on the price. But the tricky part is that any amount you pay above the appraised value comes out of your pocket as cash. The bank will only finance up to the percentage of the appraised value they agreed to. So if you're putting down 10% and the property appraises at $650,000, the bank will finance 90% of $300,000. You're responsible for the $50,000 plus, whatever you're paying above the appraised value. If we can't agree on the price, we can renegotiate, You may be able to cancel the contract, walk away without penalty, or pay above the appraisal. So, this explains the details of the appraisal process. As I mentioned before, if it appraises low and there are multiple offers, we need to be aggressive. We'll discuss this more when we get into the details. Okay, let's talk about getting the clear to close from the lender. Once both the lender and title company say the underwriters have cleared everything, we're good to go. At this point, the transaction picks up again. We'll do a final walkthrough to ensure the property is still in the same condition as during the inspection. We'll get the money required to close, and then we'll go to the title company together to sign the documents, which is usually done quickly. Make sure to bring your ID and, if there's an association, the original approval letter. Now that we've gone through this entire negotiation process and discussed common misconceptions, let's touch on some of the areas where buyers often get stuck. This is a big one. Some people say, I am going to wait for the market to crash. As I mentioned before, we have seen buyers who have been waiting and waiting, thinking prices can't keep going up. If you look at places like San Francisco, where economic indicators pushed prices up, you'll see their market has stayed fairly stable for a long time. We need to focus on market indicators, not just at a national level, but also at a hyper-local level. This will help you understand what to expect from the market going forward. The next one is, I don't know if I have enough money saved, or I'm just going to keep saving because I don't know how much I actually need. The reality is, we need to connect you with a lender. We need to get you set up and walk you through that process. If we can find you the best financing, even if you don't have enough money at the moment, you'll at least have a target number to work towards. Maybe you're thinking, I don't know if my credit's good enough. The same applies. Let's work with a lender to address that. This is another common response we get. I should wait another year because I don't feel ready yet. My recommendation is that we schedule a consultation. We can start by helping you develop your game plan, as often, when people say they want to wait another year, it's because they lack sufficient information to make a confident decision. As a result, they become paralyzed by the fear of not having enough information. The next one is, I'm going to go with the realtor that I know personally. As we've discussed, choosing the right team is crucial for making not just one great decision, but several smart decisions throughout your transaction. The next concern is, I'm just going to hold off because I don't really know where to start, and I'll wait until I feel ready. I would recommend you go ahead and meet with your realtor. Meeting with your realtor is just a step to educate yourself and start to learn about the process. It doesn't mean you have to buy a home right away or even this year, but what you will learn is exactly what to do, what to expect, and where the sticking points are, so that when you are ready, whether it's today, tomorrow, next year, or in 2 years, you know exactly what to expect. So I would recommend you schedule an appointment and talk with me about your goals, and we can map out a plan to get you where you want to be. Right now, you might be thinking, okay, I can do this. Let's go ahead and get started. Or maybe you're feeling uncertain, thinking, oh no, I don't know what I'm getting into. Or just feeling like, okay, I need to pause and think this through a bit more, because that nervous feeling in your stomach is making you uneasy. We're here to act as your guide in your home buying experience. It's the biggest purchase you will ever make, so it's not uncommon to feel a little uneasy. My job is to guide you through the cycle. As your representative, I will have your back and be your advocate, and I'll be looking out for all the potential landmines and prepare you for the next step at each stage of the process. It's important you feel both comfortable and confident in making the right decision, without worrying about all the details. You should focus on making the right choice and then let me handle the rest. That way, you can think about collecting those keys at the closing table and moving into your new property with your family. So what are the benefits of working with us? The main thing home buyers need is an experienced realtor who has your best interest at heart. Home buyers really need peace of mind as they enter a purchase, especially first-time home buyers. You need an expert in real estate. Second, you need someone who is completely trustworthy. And third, you need someone who listens to your needs and understands what you are looking for. We strive to deliver a concierge level of service to our clients by listening to your needs and deliver expert advice all along the way. We will use our years of experience to negotiate the best possible price the market will allow. And all along the way, we will listen and hear your input and desires. And you'll receive our vendor list. I've spent years building relationships to ensure we find you the best vendors, from roofers to personal organizers to accountants and everything in between. You will get a local expert who will introduce you to the neighborhood. Starting August 17th, 2024, all buyers' agents must have a buyer representation agreement signed by their clients before they can tour homes, whether in person or virtually. This agreement outlines how the buyer's agent will be compensated and ensures that buyers are fully informed about the services provided by their agents. The aim of this new requirement is to enhance transparency and protect consumer interests by clearly defining the terms of the relationship between buyers and their agents. It also addresses the need for buyer agents to discuss their compensation with their clients up front, rather than relying solely on seller-paid commissions. We have an electronic version of this buyer's representation agreement on our website. I'll send you a link where you can read the agreement and sign electronically at your convenience. Just remember, this is a requirement before we can go look at homes. My goal is to make this process as smooth and successful as possible for you. Feel free to ask any questions you might have about this agreement or the home buying process. I'm here to help! Now that we've gone through this entire experience together, I hope you're feeling a bit more clarity. The next step is to book your consultation. You'll find a link below to fill out the buyer questionnaire and your buyer's representation agreement. Completing these forms helps us understand exactly what you're looking for, and it ensures that we're prepared for our consultation. If there are any other decision makers who should be involved, like a family member contributing to the down payment, include them in this process. This helps eliminate friction later on when they might not have all the necessary information. After the consultation, we'll set up your property search and we'll figure out the best time to start shopping for properties. I hope you've enjoyed this workshop. We covered a lot of information. Hopefully you found this valuable. If you have any questions, feel free to call, text, or email. And I look forward to seeing you at your consultation.